Good evening and welcome at last to 2020 Vision. Um, my name's Jenny Fisher and we're joined tonight by, well, certainly one guest. I'd like to welcome Miah, who's the chair of the Island Network. And somewhere in the background we have Councillor Paul Merry from Redbridge. He may look like a portrait rather than a live participant for some of the time. Something seems to have hit the Redbridge internet, which has slightly delayed our broadcast and might mean that we just have the pleasure of looking at Paul rather than hearing from him. But we'll see how it goes and try to get him live. So tonight we are looking at the East London news, and in particular we are looking at three things which have something in common, which it seems to be that the poorest people in East London, in our community, are the ones paying for coronavirus. And we're going to go through our various issues, I hope. If you'd like to join our conversation, or throw another issue into the ring, or tell us about your campaign, then ring us on 0208 1234507. 0208 1234507. We're always happy to hear from you, and we'll respond to whatever it is you would like to promote. But for the moment, we're going to kick off with having a little chat about something that seems to be happening in parks across East London. Tower Hamlets has just announced, with a great fanfare, that it has been given a green flag award for 12 of its parks. So if you live near one of these 12 parks, then be aware that they are some of the best in East London and in the country. Altab Alley, Island Gardens, Meath Gardens, Mile End Park, Millwall Park, Poplar Rec, Sir John McDougall Gardens, St George's Gardens, Stepney Green Park, Trinity Square Gardens, Weavers Fields, and the last one, Victoria Park. So those parks are the Tower Hamlets Green Flag parks. Now, Maium, coming to you first, I noticed that St John's Park isn't there, is it? Have you been to St John's Park lately?
Yes, I have. I always walk through St John's Park.
So how's it looking? Why do you think it didn't get its green flag?
Well, at the moment, not many people are using St John's Park. It's not really ideal, apart from the tennis court. But obviously, they're probably targeting the ones who the parks mostly with the outdoor gyms. So we don't have outdoor gyms at St John's Park.
No, it would be hard to fit them in, really, wouldn't it? An outdoor gym in that space. But no, I think you're right. It's not got some good usage at the moment, and apart from the tennis court. So if you live on the Isle of Dogs and you're trying to play tennis, there's obviously a good scheme going there. But you've noticed something else, haven't you, Maium, about the outdoor gyms? And something that appears to be a bit of a change in policy in Tower Hamlets that we want to tell our listening public about. First of all, perhaps you can tell us why you're so keen on outdoor gyms and why it is that Sir John McDougall Gardens has one.
Well, it's something I campaigned for, I think in 2018. I think I felt that it's very important to have outdoor gym for our resident to come out and enjoy, because not everyone can afford going to gym, paying monthly payments. So an outdoor gym is an ideal for people with low income, vulnerable people who can't afford. So it was an opportunity for us and the council to do something good for the vulnerable or the low-paid residents. So I think it was something that I was passionate about. Something I campaigned for with other many residents, and it's well used. We had so many comments, so many feedbacks that it's going to be vandalized, it's going to be this, it's going to be that, but so far it has not been vandalized. I can't think of a single. People are really using it. Children, parents, mum, everyone's using it, and it's really a fantastic project for the borough. Not just Isle of Dogs, for the whole borough.
Hmm. Yes, and there's 7 outdoor gyms in Tower Hamlets Park, as well as Millwall Park on Manchester.
Yeah.
It says Millwall Park is on Manchester Road. I wouldn't say that Millwall Park was on Manchester Road. A bit of, I think, council interpretation going on there. Rope Walk Gardens in Golding Street, E1. Shandy Park, that's in E1. And then Rounton Road Open Space, that's in Rounton Road,
Mm.
E3. Pollard Square in E2. There's Jolly's Green in E14. I thought they were going to try to build on there, so that may be in some danger. It's an open space, and they're not too
Yeah.
keen on them in Poplar Harker, in Harkerland. Um, and on the island, there's Millwall Park, as I said, and there's also Sir John McDougall Gardens. Those are the 7 gyms. And what have you found out about a new costs regime, Maium?
Well, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, this mayor, not a single thing he's been doing, like, appreciated by the residents. I mean, everything he's doing. I mean, it's so frustrating. It seems like it's an outgoing mayor messing everything up before he goes. That's how I see it. I mean, to put child. I mean, he had no consultation with the park users or with community groups or even like people who are using the park. On a daily basis. There's been no suddenly. He's implementing licensing process that will be charging people who will be coaching exercises and things like that. But some of the people or some of the coaches, they don't even charge. They don't charge people. They
Mm,
just do it voluntarily. So how are you going to be charging? I mean, the justification they're giving is these people are making money and we should be charging them. But how do they know these people are making money? I know
mm,
many community, individual, they're not charging. They're just doing it for a goodwill for the community benefits, and they're just going to the park and they're doing it free of charge. So are they saying,
mm,
they will be charging the community for giving a community service free of charge? It doesn't make
mhm.
sense.
No, this is, I mean, I can understand your passion, and I am as baffled as you are. Um, we stumbled across a notice that there were fees and charges were going to be raised for fitness licenses. So it's very
Yeah,
clearly it's
that's
not
exactly what it
just
is.
for using the gyms. So it reads on the first reading, it says if you're a personal trainer, you need to be licensed. Well, that's
Yeah,
fair enough. You can't argue with that. So you've got to apply for a license from Tower Hamlets if you want to run one of your training sessions in the in one of the park's open air gyms in the park. Again, that's fair enough. If you're collecting money, if you're doing this as your commercial enterprise, part of making a living, then I'm afraid you have to share some of the costs.
yeah,
But if you look again, I mean, the first time you sent this to me, Maya, I thought, what's he on about? But then reading it more closely, it says if you run a fitness group in the park, you need to be licensed and you need to pay for that license. And that's a little bit more than just the council checking up that everyone is
mm.
safe. Um, and as you say, Mayim, there's all sorts of people who run fitness groups on a voluntary basis,
Yeah.
and they're falling into these charges as well. Um, but the charges themselves, uh, I think, are astounding. Um, it doesn't actually explain fees for an annual group fitness license. Right, okay, so that is clear.
It gives a weekly and monthly and annually, I think, the figure. And
Yes,
also the numbers of group, how much they'd be paying.
yes. So if you've got a group if you've got up to 10 people coming to your fitness session that you run. And bear in mind, there's a lot of like informal women's groups
Yeah,
around the borough, and a lot of them, sort of find places, to do various kinds of sporting and fitness activities. And you could, if you pop out with your mates down to one of the open air gyms, then are you going to be liable for a charge? This is what we don't know. So if you have 9 friends and 10 of you go down to John McDougall Gardens, and together you support each other try to hold some fitness sessions there, you could have to pay £480 a year.
Yeah.
Now, that's quite a lot. That's nearly £10 a week, isn't it?
It is.
So immediately you sort of get stung for having to pay £1 just to go down and use the open air gym. So there's a bit of a problem with that, I think. And if you have up to 30 in your group, it goes up to
Yeah. It's crazy.
£960 for a year. I mean, it allows you to go out 6 times, but still, it all seems a bit steep. So, can you hear us, Paul? Are you with us?
Yeah, I'm
Oh, good.
hoping. Oh, I can hear you. I'm hoping you can hear me. I think
We
Uh,
can.
I've had to shift locations and it'll eliminate the gremlins.
well, that's it. It does sound like it's worked, Paul. So that's lucky. We were just saying that Tower Hamlets has now started charging people if they run fitness sessions in the park. Does Redbridge have any open air fitness sessions or outdoor gyms, or what was their attitude to this sort of thing?
As far as I know, you have to have a license to carry out the money-making fitness activities in Redbridge parks.
Yes, I mean we were saying before you joined us that that was perhaps understandable, but it's this is even if you're running a voluntary group, it appears to apply as a charge to anybody, even if you just go down with some friends. If you run a fitness
So,
session, so
yeah, I've missed a bit of the detail. What is this? Is this
yeah,
actually in operation now? Or is this a proposal?
totally. No, it's up on the council website, and we don't know where it came from. So if any councillors are listening and can tell us why it is you've decided to charge
Yeah.
for groups to
And
use
especially in
your
these pandemic times where people are struggling financially, emotionally, mentally, they need to go out. They just need to find a reason to go out and, just fresh air or just divert their minds. It's such a appalling, at this time of, you're implementing charges.
Yes, I mean I used to walk past a certain park on the island. I won't say which one, quite regularly over lockdown, and you could see there was adults there working with children and young people on various kinds of fitness training. I have no idea what it was for, but our communities have got. We seem to be getting sort of imposed on this some sort of idea that things are very formal, whereas we've always had an informal community in Tower Hamlets, haven't we, where people
Yeah.
give so much time on a voluntary basis to running sporting activities for kids, and they as well, could end up having to pay these charges for a license, even if they don't actually charge the children for going along to the sessions. Um, and I think
Okay.
Redbridge, Paul, has got. You've just opened what looks terribly exciting when you read the headlines, but not necessarily the small print. You've got a brand new gym in Ilford. Have you noticed?
No, because I've not been outside a mile of my house for about a
No, I've
month
done.
now. So, what
I haven't been in Redbridge for a long time, but you've got.
is
It sounds exciting
this an
because it says
indoor
on
gym
the
or an
8th of
outdoor gym?
this is an indoor one. On the 8th of October, Redbridge Council, working with a social enterprise partner called Box Up Crime, opened a
Oh
brand new
yeah,
gym in Ilford, and it offers
yeah,
free
yeah.
classes and mentorship. I don't think mentorship is a word. To local young people. So far so good. This sounds great.
Guidance and advice.
But at the end, it goes every Thursday. So young people in Redbridge, you can go and you can have free classes and you can have mentorship every Thursday. The other 6 days of the week, you just have to think about it or go for a walk, I suppose. It's got all sorts of bits and pieces there, but young people aged 7 to 19 can learn boxing skills, work with mentors, work with other professional boxers and coaches, which is now already going away a bit from this idea of, oh, it's a gym, for free every Thursday. And it's Redbridge has put some money in from its community infrastructure levy for surrounding development. So are you going to go and check it out, Paul, when you get out?
As soon as I'm fit enough to travel towards Ilford again, The COVID rates in Ilford are not encouraging me out onto public transport at the moment.
What happened to your bike then?
Well, the bike. Good point. Yes.
Boris stolen it.
Now, the bike currently has a dodgy set of brakes that I've been meaning to get sorted out for about 4 weeks now.
If only you'd been stuck in the house for 4 weeks with nothing to do. You could have sorted them.
That's the problem. I got no outdoor workspace. So it's been raining non-stop. Yes, I need to tick that one off the list.
Okay, yes. Okay, well, I think we've exhausted the parks issue because we don't know what is going on, but we do think it's a bad thing that people are being charged for organising informal groups in our parks, and we can't find a councillor to explain it. Okay, so now we want to move on a bit and look at coronavirus. Since we last all met, we have fallen into tier 2. So one activity that's clearly no longer permitted is indoor meetings of mixed households. So there's a couple of politicians have been, we understand, going around Tower Hamlets having some indoor meetings with some colleagues and potential supporters. So you'll have to stop that now. So please, everyone, keep an eye out. And if you're asked to come to a meeting with any local aspiring politician, it may be the time to turn it down. There's all sorts of different areas. So old Andy, what's his name, from Manchester, he's seems to have been frozen out by Boris. Was he a bit of a plonker? Has he held on too far? What do you think, Paul?
Sorry, say again. I missed the first name. Is who?
The mayor of the Greater Manchester area, who has stuck out for extra funding. But he's been Boris has now just ignored him. So, do you think he was a bit of a twerp, hanging on too long?
Well, it's a tactical choice, I suppose. But at least he fought the good fight and made the case. We've got a bit of time for Mr. Burnham. He's prepared to stand up for his region. But yeah, I mean, just goes to show how this government behaves. Unless you basically do exactly what they say, then you just get dumped off, basically. Yes, I mean, it's an issue that rather worries me if we get anywhere near going into tier 3, and not to mention the hoo-ha that's going on around TfL funding at the moment. This government only negotiates on the basis of what you're told, basically.
Yeah. So, what do you think, Maium? Do you think who would you rather have in your corner fighting for you than trying to get money off of Boris, John Biggs or Andy Burnham?
Well, at least Andy Burnham is fighting for his resident. I mean, we have a mayor who's doing the opposite, fighting, against the residents. I mean, Andy Burnham, he's doing his best, and I think it's not just him. There's also Tory MPs, and it's a cross-party motive, and I think it's a very good motive for the benefit of the residents, of the people, vulnerable people, people with low income, self-employed people, and I think he's absolutely right to fight. That's why he's the elected mayor, and he's doing his role perfectly, and I salute him for that. And I think he's fighting for the best of the residents. Unfortunately, it's unfortunate, the government is not listening, or they're trying to corner him. But I think whatever he's doing is for the benefit of the Greater Manchester.
Yes, it's I agree. I think it's very good to see a Labour politician actually speak up about what the people in his area need. Although I see we have had a comment put on our Facebook page, so this will embarrass you, Maium. And Ashid Ali has commented, "I have been impressed with Mohammed Maium Miah and the support he has provided with delivering food to the needy over the past 6 months. Absolutely impressive." So well done, Maium.
Thank you.
Got a shout out there. You've had to bring those food delivery sessions to an end. Why is that, Maium? Why did they end?
Well, I mean, we've distributed over 10,000, I think, since February. I think it's been really amazing journey along with the volunteers. We've been working day and night, distributing sometimes 3 times a week. Obviously, One Housing and Canary Wharf supported us. We're grateful to them, mainly One Housing. They've really supported us through the community chest. But I think we would love to continue that, but obviously it came to an end. And at the moment, we're only doing emergencies. So we're getting support from various other the outdoor Docklands play area, for example. Diane Tracy, through her, Paul Tracy, we're getting some stuff weekly basis, and we're distributing to like emergency people who have contacted us. So, but we'd love to do it more regularly. But at the moment, we're just doing once a week. But it's more of a targeted emergency where the most needs are.
So you're a bit like Andy Burnham, aren't you? You're there with your infrastructure, but
Yeah.
the higher authority isn't
But
handing out the money.
we are already planning Christmas hampers for for the island wide elders. So we're planning that. One Housing are talking with us and all the TRAs. So we are grateful for that. Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Good. Okay. So going back to looking at COVID again. Of course, the other big news is that it's come out in the news today that about half of secondary schools in the country have had to send at least one pupil home to self-isolate because of them having been in contact with somebody who has potentially got the virus. And at least one can mean whole classes, whole bubbles, whole year groups, or so on. And in primary school, it's only 16% of schools have had to send someone home. Although I think in Tower Hamlets, the average figure is 25%. Have you any idea how it's going in Redbridge, Paul, with schools? Are they coping, or is it difficult?
I don't have exact figures, but number of outbreaks of infection have been very limited so far. But I've only really got knowledge of local authority schools, not non-local authority schools.
No.
But everybody wants to try and keep education going, but there does come a point where there might have to be closures in the future if infection rates really do get out of control. So it's all a question of monitoring, and of course the test and trace system isn't exactly what you'd want it to be at the moment.
Maium, you've got children at school in Tower Hamlets, haven't you? I mean, have you got any grasp of how things actually are at the chalk face, how the schools are coping?
Well, I mean, my children are attending both junior and secondary school, and I think the schools are doing a fantastic job. They're doing the best. They're both head teachers. They're communicating with parents. For example, the secondary school, they had an issue. Straight away, they kind of send them home for 2 weeks. I mean, they're doing whatever within their ability. But as a parents, I mean, I'm worried every time my children are. I've got 4 children going to school. 2 different schools. I am worried as a parent. I'm worried. I don't know what they're bringing, what's happening, and obviously I can't blame the school. It's not their fault. Obviously, it's the government. But it is a very difficult one. I mean, I feel they can educate. They can do sessions from home through Zoom. So at least they've. I as a parent, I feel that my children are at home and they're safe. I am beginning to worry now. Every time everything is increasing, the virus is increasing. I'm beginning to worry, and it's a crazy situation at the moment.
I suppose that there's a lot of pressure nationally on keeping the schools open because most parents, to allow parents to go out to work. Although at the same time, there's a bit of a pressure not to go out to work because of the sort of various new tiers that are coming in. So that's all a bit contradictory. I know it's difficult, isn't it? And of course, the other area of education we've been concerned about is higher education. And Paul, your kids are older, and I think that's where your experience has been. You've got a son who's trying to be at university. It's not working
Yes,
out
yeah.
well.
He went off about 4 weeks ago to Nottingham, and within a week he got symptoms and tested positive. So he's been self-isolating for the last 2 weeks. Unfortunately, he seems to be pulling through it reasonably well. But yeah, I mean,
Does he say about?
it's
Has he talked about how it? This isn't the sort of student experience he was looking for. I mean, he must have wanted some sort of student experience. That must have been, why he bothered to go,
well,
even given the
no, it's
conditions.
not exactly what it's not what anyone was expecting. I don't think. I mean, particularly as he's on an animal science course where there's a lot of sort of hands-on work with animals, which isn't happening at the moment because they can't do face-to-face contact with teachers who are covering the practical stuff in terms of animal care. So yes, it's all a bit weird, but I think he's just been very happy to lie down for 2 weeks with his cough and his headaches and just eke it out while online. But we don't really measure up to what previous generations have experienced out of their first term at university.
No. So was it? Is it just him who's not going to class, or are the classes not running at all in person?
I don't think there's much face-to-face teaching going on at all, apart from sort of online stuff at the moment. So.
It must be terrible for students doing those sort of science courses that need hands-on experience or lab work. It's not good at all.
Yes.
Oh well, sorry to hear about that.
Yes.
If you've got an experience,
all part of the joy of this virus.
it just feels like we're going to have to write off another year, doesn't it? Another academic year for people.
Yeah,
If you've got,
it is looking horribly ominous. Yeah.
well, dear listener, if you've got experience of children at school in Tower Hamlets or away at university, do call in and tell us how they're doing. It's 020 8 12345 07 0208 1234507. So ring in and give us a call. Okay, so I think those are the two topics that we mostly wanted to talk about. But there's yet another area where the pressure on council budgets is potentially being compensated by some of the most vulnerable children. And that's in the support that Tower Hamlets Council provides for children with special needs. And we wanted to draw your attention to a meeting that's actually going on tomorrow night. If we could actually just ask the back room to put up the poster with the Support for Learning Service meeting details on. Hopefully you've seen this poster around on various parts of social media, and we'll put it up on East London News Twitter as well, I think. But this is basically giving us details of a public meeting that's going to be taking place, obviously, over Zoom. And that meeting is tomorrow, Wednesday, the 21st of October at 6 o'clock. And it's a very important meeting because the council is considering cutting its central unit, which helps support teachers who in turn go on to support children with special needs. And of all the cuts that's been made in Tower Hamlets, this really does seem to be, you can't say it's the worst, but yet another very, very, very bad and not necessarily cost effective decision. If there's any councillors listening again and you want to defend your decision to halve the support service given to schools, then do ring in and let us know. Will you be going to the meeting, Maium, tomorrow?
I will try. I have something happening tomorrow, but some part of the meeting I'll
Well,
try join. Yeah, but it's a very important meeting.
yeah.
You know, it's just it's crazy. I mean, this is throughout the borough, all these cuts. I mean, look at the voluntary sector, for example. You know, voluntary sector, the Tower Hamlets voluntary sector, they used to bring 30, 40 million pounds worth of services to this borough, and it's gone under this mayor. And you know, they are the ones who support the residents, provide the vital services throughout the rainy days, and good days. And now, we're in such a situation where we need these third sector organizations supporting our residents, supporting the people of Tower Hamlets. But, the support isn't there for them to support us residents. So it's a
How's it
shame.
going? How's it going in Redbridge, Paul? Has your voluntary sector been hit at all?
There were some minor cuts last year, but I mean this year, well, no council that I know of nationally is it's looking great at the moment. We're looking at about a 50 million budget deficit this year. Our budget preparations start in November, so I'm sure there's lots of bad news going to come out sometime around about November. All
Well,
you can
last
do
I
is
heard,
concentrate on. So I was going to say, all you can do is focus on the most vulnerable and protecting the services for most vulnerable people. I'm
yeah,
sure when the budget papers come out in November and we start discussing them, there's going to be a lot of hard talk and a lot of hard decisions to be made.
yes. But of course, in Tower Hamlets, we seem to have a habit of identifying the most vulnerable and then cutting the services we give to them. I don't know what the worst of it is. The aim of the cuts to support for learning service seems to be to cut 650,000. In a council which has got a funding gap of 35 million, which is the last one we heard, then this seems just such a small contribution to balancing the budget. But in reality, in terms of what services are going, I mean, Tower Hamlets has 5.5 teachers at the moment who have really specialist knowledge in how to work with visually impaired children. And those children are usually identified when they're quite young. So those specialists, and you might find if you've got a 4 or 5 year old joining school for the first time and they have a visual impairment, you might find that teachers in that school haven't had anybody who's been blind since birth or got whatever the impairment is, but they can call on the central service of 5.5 teachers um, to support them and give them tips and to keep them up to date, to talk to parents and help parents and teachers work together to get that child integrated in school. And I've seen children with visual impairment. In fact, one child who was born with no eyes and was succeeding magnificently because of the support of Borough like Tower Hamlets gives him in adjusting to a mainstream school. Well, those 5.5 teachers are going to be cut to 2, but the number of children with visual impairment isn't being cut. So what's the idea here? What are the other children going to do? Everyone's going to survive just on half of it. Similarly, I mean, we know what a high incidence of deafness and partial hearing there is in Tower Hamlets, and again, we're seeing a team of 6.5 very specialist teachers cut to 3, and that comes on top of all the extra demands that the Children's House is placing on that, getting support from that team. Now they've had to take on the children who used to be quite well catered for in the local authority day nursery, which was then axed. It's just this rolling, this rolling boulder appears to be going through the borough and just trying to flatten all the children with special needs, and stop the services which are going to integrate them into education. And what will happen, I think the worry is, what will happen is that the children who used to sort of feel, parents who used to feel quite secure about sending their child to school in Tower Hamlets, are going to have to send them out of borough to find a specialist place, which is going to make that child feel odd and unintegrated, which is going to affect the integration in the schools that are left and cost the borough in transport. So it's really a really dubious sort of cut. Have we got anything else to say on that?
Well, I'm not surprised under this mayor. I mean, anyone, vulnerable resident, he'll go after everything. No, I mean, it's a shame. We're losing these services. They somehow find the magic tree to increase their salary, to employ advisors and pay his every single councillor's lump sum money through special responsibilities, and we don't have money for vulnerable resident of this borough. I mean, it's a really shame. It's absolutely, how can this happen? At this time of, we're going through a very difficult times. We shouldn't be cutting, vulnerable services for the vulnerable, services for the elderly. But in fact, he's just doing the opposite. It's absolutely crazy.
It's a very strange approach, isn't it? But
It is. I mean, he's shown no leadership. He's shown absolutely no leadership during this. He doesn't have any leadership quality anyway, but especially during these pandemic times, he's shown no leadership by providing support to the residents.
I suppose one of the reasons why it's working out for Labour at the moment is because there's no obvious organised opposition, and it does make you wonder if the community is ever going to be pushed into a position whereby it is going to get itself together and not just take everything lying down. But there we are. Well, I suppose we'll see in the fullness of time whether anything happens there, or whether John Biggs or someone else carries on regardless. Okay, so anything else about Corona that you two have noticed in your localities that you want to talk about? Dear listener, if you would like to ring us, this is your last chance, I think, because we're beginning to come towards the end of our time. If you'd like to ring in and talk about your campaign or whatever you're doing, suffering under from in terms of COVID locally, then now's your chance. Okay. Right. Yes, we were talking about testing centres, or track and test and trace and all the rest of it. Recently, I see we've got a new local testing unit that's just opened at Jack Dash House. Did you know about that, Maium?
I heard about it. Yeah, I heard about it. There's one around Watley Market and one in Jack Dash.
So if anybody wants to go and stand near some people who think they might have coronavirus, Jack Dash House is the place to go, I think. Okay.
Yes. Well, we've just had another centre open up in the west of the borough in Redbridge, but the difficulty seems to be it's all very well having testing centres and carrying out tests. What you've got to do is get them processed, and there still seems to be problems with getting the labs to turn them around in time. And the other thing to remember out there, people, is go and get your flu jab, because you really don't want a dose of flu on top of all the other nasties that's floating around at the moment. And lots of people are entitled. I'm waiting for my free one, which I was promised might be available around about November.
Oh dear.
I might have to end up paying the 14 quid to go down a bit quicker than that. There's a great flurry of government propaganda that everyone over 50 would get a flu jab this year, but then it turned out that won't be available to non-priority groups who are over 50 until November time. So I'm thinking.
Well, I think I told the story recently about how I managed my wonderful chemist who looks after me so well. Unlike my slightly less wonderful GP, who is a bit more challenging, my wonderful chemist had secured me one of the first doses, so I had my flu jab 2 or 3 weeks ago. But it was a bit alarming because as I went in, who was standing outside the chemist speaking to camera but John Biggs? So There we are. I don't think he was stalking me. I think it was coincidental. The man with the camera was just putting the camera away as I went past, so John didn't get a chance to document our proximity, unfortunately for him. So, and Maium, you're too young. You're not entitled to a flu jab yet, I'm sure. But yeah, okay. Well, I hope it works out for you, Paul. I don't know why. I don't know why there is this shortage, but you're right. They are talking about it at the moment, aren't they? So, the other fun that we've been having in Tower Hamlets, I don't know if you've noticed this in Redbridge, Paul, is we had the Queen's Birthday Honours List has come out. It's not the usual time of year, I think, for that to come out, but it was again delayed because of coronavirus. And I don't know if I can read this correctly, but community champion Dabirul Islam Chowdhury has received an OBE. He's a gentleman he's 100 years old, and he did 100 laps of his community garden earlier this year, raising money during Ramadan, during the fasting period. Do you know him, Mayum?
Yeah, I know him very well. Yeah.
Mm. So,
Yeah,
is he
I
still
saw this
walking?
fella on the telly.
He's always walking. He's always walking, Jenny. He's a wonderful, wonderful gentleman. You know, it's just amazing what he did. You know, we're really proud of him, and it's just amazing and well
Well,
deserved award.
brilliant. His efforts have now been recognised, and then there's another name that I'm sure is going to be recognised by both of you, because of course, Paul, you lived a lot of your life on the island. There's another person who's had an OBE for services to the community on the island, which is one Margaret Tracy,
Oh yes,
who's the director of the Mudshoot Farm at the moment. And I know his two things. I mean, I know she's put herself out to keep the Mudshoot going and actually to improve it. But I remember, it's the little things that Margaret has always done that count for so much as well. I remember being involved in a school in some business-related learning activity there, and there was a young person who worked in financial services, and he spoke about how he lived on the Smuda, which is where Margaret used to live, for years, and what good care she would take of the kids. She'd always make sure there was a minibus going up to Epping Forest during the summer holidays, having a bit of a camp out. And I remember even a few summers, well, quite a few summers ago now, it was a very hot summer, and she just came out with glasses of water for the kids who were playing out, which they didn't do until we beat the BNP, but after that, then they started doing it. So I think that's very well. Have you got any memories of Margaret Tracy, Paul?
Not in detail, but a lot of members of the Mudshoot.
Yeah.
One of the few benefits of going to my dentist, which is still on the Isle of Dogs, is that after I've been tortured by the dentist, I can shuffle over to the Mudshoot Cafe and recover. But
Yes.
the last time I went down for an emergency filling, everything was still on COVID lockdown. So the poor old Mudshoot wasn't functioning at that stage. I hope it's all holding together down there.
Well, I'm hoping that it's under new management. I remember a fundraising dinner held by the local Labour Party in that restaurant many, many years ago, where the guests of honour, I think they weren't even elected at that stage, or if they were, it was only just. The new MP, Jim Fitzpatrick, and the old Mrs. Fitzpatrick, who I think it's well known are actually vegetarians. And the Mudshoot Calf, it must be under new management now, served them up quiche, because that's of course what you do to vegetarians, you give them quiche. But they did add the gravy, so everybody else was having a chicken dinner, so the quiche arrived covered with chicken gravy. So fortunately things have moved on since then. And the other person who's the other Tower Hamlets, well, two more people from Tower Hamlets worth a mention. Elizabeth Marshall, who helped set up the Bow Food Bank, has received an MBE for her community work. And also one of our few celebrities from the local area, Dizzy Rascal, has had an MBE for services to music. So I'm glad somebody's serving music. but he was also serving food parcels locally a little bit earlier on this year. So that was a useful
bless him.
canter through. Yeah.
The Dizzy was under the care of the comrade Mrs. at Langdon Park for a while.
Oh,
So
yes.
it's
Yes.
amazing how well he's done in view of that.
Yes. Yes. Well, Langdon Park has never ceased to amaze me for many reasons. Okay, right. Let's pull this together. In Redbridge as well, you're having a virtual coffee morning at the end of the week on foster care. So if anyone's interested in fostering in Redbridge,
Yes.
have a look on the council website. And the other thing that's happened to you, of course, is you've actually managed to influence your mayor in Tower Hamlets, in Redbridge, Paul, because your council leader has brought the Quiet Streets pilot to an end. Were you aware of this?
Yes, only in Barkingside, the other two schemes continue. But no, there comes a point where something ain't working and you've got to take some action. And it really wasn't going well in Barkingside.
So what was a Quiet Street pilot?
Sorry?
What was a Quiet Street pilot? Tell us what the Quiet Street
Well,
programme was.
Well, they're all over different boroughs, but I mean, basically cutting off through rat running is the primary objective, which is a good thing in itself. But unfortunately, the way this money arrived from government and via TfL was to introduce it via emergency legislation, as it's supposedly, being introduced to reduce traffic as part of the coronavirus emergency. So that gives you no chance to do any prior consultation. And you're supposed to, adjust and modify the scheme as you go along. But there's only so much you can do, really. And after 3 weeks, there is absolute gridlock on the roads and chaos, and residents are very, very unhappy. Then, you just got to admit that something ain't working. It's not good to go on keep making the same mistake all the time.
Now, what's your leader's name? Jazz Athwal, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. His press release on the council website, I think, is not something we'd often see in Tower Hamlets. He says many local people have reached out to me directly about the recent pilots.
Yeah, I think that's one way of putting it.
Yeah, I think it was a lot of reaching out, I think. And Councillor Khaled Noor, I think, led quite a lot of reaching out as well, and a bit of walking around the streets, doing some field work. Your colleague up there. And he also says residents expected and deserved a thorough consultation prior to installing the schemes, which, as Paul explained, isn't possible. So there's a sentiment that's working better out east than it is with us, eh?
Lucky Redbridge.
Yes, well, we're not the most radical, but we try to be reasonably competent.
Yeah.
And we're the opposite.
Yes. Well, we had a consultation on whether Tower Hamlets homes should remain outsourced or come back in house. I think it was it 200 people replied? A similar consultation in Hackney got over 5,000 responses. And the councillors went ahead on the basis of the 200.
It's the quality of consultation, isn't it? It's how you do it and who you talk to.
I didn't even know Tower Hamlets homes were still staggering on, to be honest. So I've learnt something there. I thought it had ceased to be some while back.
A lot of people think it should cease to be and that the service should come back in-house. But it's not happened. I mean, how do you feel about in-house versus... all these Almos were set up, basically, because the government demanded it.
Yeah, I mean, I worked for the Almo in Hackney for about, the entirety of its existence.
Is that still staggering on, or has that been wound up?
No, that went back in-house about 4 years ago. It was when I took early retirement, when it was being wound up. I thought, done my bit, time to go at this stage.
But that's really what's sort of puzzling us in Tower Hamlets, is we don't know why we haven't done the same. And somebody came up, we've taken the rubbish back in-house, the rubbish contract, but not the housing service. And we're sort of wondering if that is quite the right priority, really. residents, not as good as
Yeah,
rubbish, you know, things like that.
no, there aren't many Almos still going out there. I mean, it was a route to decent homes funding and a means to an end, really.
Yeah,
I,
so of
I
course
really,
our route to decent homes funding basically led us to flog off a whole load of our housing.
It was misleading, wasn't it, at the time? It's absolutely.
Well, it was just a democratic deficit, wasn't there? Because once you'd voted your estate to transfer on the basis of all these promises, you then had no means to enforce the promises. So if the
Yeah,
promises
but
made,
people voted in because of the misleading information and promises, and it's yeah. But we can't go back.
mm,
We just hope nobody, nothing further happens. I wish we could be back to the council, but just hope there's no merging or anything happening. We're hearing so many rumours.
well, this is it, isn't it? There's housing associations are struggling, and there's a great move to merge, and they're just so remote. I'm not sure if they're actually useful organisations. I think a lot of us are really suffering the consequences from what Mr. Keith has
Done.
organised in Tower Hamlets. Right, okay. I think we're coming. Let's wrap it up. We're coming to the end of our allotted time. I've done lots of listing of issues here, but I think we've had a canter through. So midterm now. Do you think? One last question to each of you. I mean, do you think Labour is acquitting itself well? Paul, what's your verdict on the Redbridge rule?
locally, well, I mean, we're only into our second term in control of the council. Lots of the Tories running it, apart from one coalition administration, and there's a lot of ground to make up. It's been fairly transformational in terms of a lot of basic services. We have sort of joined the 21st century, so I'm reasonably hopeful for prospects, but I'm not really thinking beyond the mayoral elections next year, and even will those still happen? If we can all get through the winter and not end up in tier 3 or a further national lockdown, then I'll be a fairly happy bunny come May next year, because this really hasn't been one of the greatest years ever to be in local government.
No.
It's the way staff have coped is just astounding, really. I'm very glad I'm out of it on a day-to-day basis.
Well, of course, back on the island, our housing staff, have coped with it by going home. One of the things we were promised in the transfer, and Paul used to live on the Barkentine as well, so it's your
They're
sort of
all
property
working
as well.
from home.
Yeah, and we were promised local housing offices, weren't we? Now there's nothing. So there we are. And so, Maium, do you think Labour's doing well on the island and in Tower Hamlets? Are you filled with confidence?
Well, they're not doing well. I mean, we've received so much money, millions of pounds of money from the central government. We don't know where it's been spent. I mean, we've all heard about the 35 million or 34 million pounds, the whole. So we still don't know. I've done FOIs and stuff. I haven't received any response as in yet. I mean, I know various other politicians also having the same problem. We're not getting the responses. We need to know where they're spending. I can't see where they're spending it. I mean, the vulnerable residents are relying on third sector organizations like ourselves providing the delivery, providing the food packs. I can't see what they're doing. And also, there's many hardships in Tower Hamlets. I mean, there's lack of leadership. They could have frozen the council tax. They could have had a window period for rents, and many other, working with the housing association. They could have done a lot. This is the time to help people. Instead, they're doing the opposite. I'm absolutely, yeah, I'm just, I'm not happy with the way things are.
Well, that's what we like,
Not
a
at
little
all.
bit of controversy on the show. We've covered coronavirus.
And also, sorry,
Yeah,
one more
go
thing.
on.
There's been so much, hush hush about the business grant. God knows how they've been managing. I mean, so many,
Mm,
businesses, they've called out for their grant, but the grant was already received from someone else.
yeah.
So, there's so much issues. I mean, within the borough. I mean, it's just God knows what they're up to and what are they doing.
Mm. Well, that's, I'm afraid, the question we're going to have to end on. But we've looked at coronavirus, we've looked at parks. We don't know why Tower Hamlets has started charging for parks. We don't know why Redbridge thinks that you can only help young people on Thursdays. So that's our questions. Nobody's phoned in to tell us. We've warned residents to watch out for politicians having meetings
Meetings.
indoors. Yeah, because they might not be lawful under Tier 2 restrictions. We've looked at school students and universities, and of course the SLS, the Support for Learning Service, the latest part of the Tower Hamlets Education Special Needs budget to be cut. So do think about going along to the meeting, joining the Zoom meeting that's being held tomorrow night. I've heard people speak about the proposed cuts, and it's fascinating, but also, of course, very grim. So thank you very much to our two guests. I hope we'll see you again soon. That's Councillor Paul
Thank
Merry
you.
from internet stricken Redbridge, although it worked out in the end, and to Miah, chair of the Island Network. I'm Jenny Fisher. We've had a bit of a hiatus in East London News because of technical difficulties, but we are back up and running now. So we'll see you on East London News for the rest of this week, and we'll see you again on Tuesday night next week for another 2020 Vision. So good night and stay safe.
Good night.